Yes, sir. We are in the building. Okay. What up? What up? What up? Rasta Ozzy is in the building. Yo, yo, yo. Yes, sir. Okay, Rasta Ozzy, are you seeing the live chat? Ernst Philip, are you seeing the live chat as well? Big up, big up, big up, guys. No, yes, okay, cool. This is what I was actually trying to set up a while ago, guys. That took me about a good 10 minutes to try to get up right there, man. That's crazy. But we are definitely in the building. So from time to time, you will see the chat pop up, and then sometimes you won't. So I'm just happy I got this thing to work. Ernst, are you seeing the live chat? Are you seeing the chat box as well? KB Lyric, big up yourself one time. Are you guys seeing the chat box? Are you guys seeing yourself in the chat box? Oh, I need to share this stuff as well. Let me look to share this stuff on my SAP. Yes, guys. I know today is Friday, but you know, actually, I didn't realize today is Friday, man, until I saw this thing, man. I'm like, my goodness, I'm having these people inside the house. Friday to me, you go and free up yourself a little bit, not too much, but a little bit, just enough, so you can enjoy yourself. But you gotta do what you gotta do, man. Let me see this thing a while. Okay, we're good to go. Let me share this stuff on my no, that's the wrong thing. Yeah, that should not be. But I'm sharing this stuff on my WhatsApp status, so people can know I'm in the building. Yes, guys. So how is everything going so far, man? Always a Friday going for you guys? Are you guys at work? I know some people tend to watch my videos when they are in work. They're in work, but they watch my videos. Hey, that's kind of funny. Um, Guys, if you can do so as well, share the link. If you have WhatsApp as well, you can post it on your WhatsApp. Okay. That should be interesting. All right. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, man, when it comes down to doing these lives. You have to try your best so you can, have everything set up fine and dandy. Okay. Rasta Ozzy say chilling. How many people is inside here right now? That goes there. Okay, 11 people. Okay, not much people coming on Friday, which is expected. But 13 people right now. Things bad. No potato salad today. But I don't even need no potato salad today. Now. That's crazy. They didn't have no literally. Probably in Rosa I would have gotten potato salad, but you know, no potato salad at all. Like nowhere. I wasn't about to go Rosa and say looking for potato salad. Maybe tonight I would have gone. You know, big up runners in Kinfield. She tends to have that. But outside of that, you know. Nick Rondura, big up yourself one time. Hopefully you guys are seeing the live chat for the first time I posted up. You take out the sound of this thing right there. Yeah. Let me put it on this one instead. And then soon enough, guys, I'm gonna go into using my phone, because that's what I set it up for me to use my phone. Big up the Pixel Massive, the Google Pixel Massive. No iPhone business. Yes, guys. Let me just make sure everything working. The screen grab works. Yep. My normal one works as well. And then this one, yeah. Yes, guys. Yes, guys. Yes, guys. I also have to readjust it, but the screen box. Big up Nikon. Big up yourself. 1 time, 2 times, 10 times, 12 times. I do appreciate you guys for definitely tuning in on this here Friday. And I'm not gonna waste much time on this thing. How long am I running? It's back and forth. Okay. Maybe I can put this thing there. No. Why not to do? Make this smaller. Okay. Put this on the side so I can go back and forth. Okay. Alright, that makes sense. 19 folks in, man. Hopefully everybody outside enjoying themselves while we inside. What is that? Baby La Zikak. I guess that person is from Zikak Posse. Yes, man. Google Pixel 8. You can never go wrong. Actually, I have the Google Pixel 8, the Google Pixel 7 Pro, and I think they're talking about getting the Google Pixel 9, but I'm not elevating to another one. This one is pretty good for me. I have cameras and stuff, you know, guys, but I still end up using this thing to actually do recordings when I'm doing gigs. Sometimes when I end up going to gigs in the US or whatever, when I'm doing videography gigs, I bring the camera just to show the people that I have a camera, and then I utilize the phone instead. I go straight for the phone afterwards. Hey, he has a big camera, great. And then I go and use the phone to do everything. Or if anything, I tend to use my Nikon, Canon ETD. I tend to use that one for B-rolls. Big up yourself, demonstrator, for being in the building. You don't know New York Massive is indeed in the building. Yes, man. I do appreciate every single one of you guys for tuning into these vibrations. Not much people is in there. I guess people outside freeing up themselves. I don't know what people do in Dominica. I myself, tonight, I would have been in the movies tonight, man. I'm not going to lie. I would have gone to the movies tonight. You know, because when it comes on to Dominica, there's not much to do in the nature of the Caribbean. So going to the movies is pretty much something that I would have done. If you guys were not there, what would you guys be doing right now? Where is the video starting at? It's not starting yet. I'm gonna start it in like a minute from now. Usually I tend to wait for a number of persons to come in, and then it switch back. Okay, well, let me switch. Okay, you switch back again. Okay, this thing is just doing. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, this thing kind of foopered me a little bit. Jerry Nelson, blessed evening to everyone. I'm in the house. Yes, guys, we are in the digital house tonight. It's a Friday night. Very nice to be outside, but I made a promise and I have to keep it right there. I might go on top of the mountain and just relax myself, man. Today's Friday, you can't be inside. You have to be outside. Vivin, brothers and sisters. Viva la vida. One life we have to live, man. And of course, this is why we are here today, to ensure that we can have a better living conditions when it comes onto the nature of the Caribbean. And of course, as you can see on the screen, we have Simeon Joseph, Irving Andre, Dr. Thompson Fountain, Mr. G, and I think this individual was from United Workers Party. I'm not really sure of his name, but we're gonna listen to some of the vibes, guys. I'm just gonna do this in one more minute. I'm not gonna wait any longer for this, so the people will have to catch it afterwards. I'm seeing some new people in there. I guess some of you guys come from my WhatsApp. Not everybody I know my WhatsApp, eh? So I appreciate you guys for definitely tuning in. If you have not done so, definitely subscribe, guys. Subscribe, turn on that post notification, man. Without further ado, guys, 30 seconds from now we're about to start. So when this reach, man, 30 minutes goes by so fast, man. But sometimes you have to wait for people to come in. But I think I'm just gonna start, man. I'm gonna start. Let me just start now, guys. Guys, should I start now? And then the other folks will just catch that later on, or let me do, guys. Should I start now? Yeah, man. Okay. Yeah, let me start now, guys. Let's continue on this thing, eh?
It's true. If you hear it on cue. Are all on the homepage of our website at www.q95da.com. Get the latest breaking news and reviews on cue, because you know it's true. If you hear it on cue. We continue to revive the spirit of graciousness, love, peace, and prosperity, and unity among our Kalinago and Afro-Caribbean brothers and sisters. It is, in fact, our 12th Global View on Q for 2024, and we are certainly going to have a great conversation tonight with you, our Q family listeners and friends of Dominica worldwide, on our live radio, as I said, at www.q95da.com, on Facebook, YouTube, Q95 FM radio.
Yes, they can watch the video later, but I tend to want to get people at the starting before, you know. But anyways, we're continuing.
Fontaine. It's all about on the price. The new deadline.
This is 2 hours long, so we're gonna see if we can just get
on that tonight, because this is
speaking
laws to the public commission as well. So we also going to focus ourselves tonight on the state of governance in Dominica, the state of Dominica's economy in light of the most recent IMF report on the situation in Dominica's economy. In terms of the state of governance, we know for a fact that one judge has said something about it, Judge Williams. He certainly had something to say about it, the state of our justice system. And I believe the president of the CCJ also had something to say about the prime ministerial democracies versus parliamentary democracies. I personally will have something to say about that later on. So I will, in fact, outline a few talking points or starters, but I will leave the substantive details of these and the rest of the talking points to you, my learned colleagues on the panel tonight, and you all callers and viewers. The government appears to be acknowledging now that the perception that there is insufficient money in the public purse and public expenses have to be reduced. However, the DLP regime did exactly the opposite of that over the past several years. The DLP regime also said economic growth had to be driven by public sector investments as the engine of growth, and in fact sidelined the private sector, which is known to be the real engine of growth. But where is Mr. Hayden getting all his money to build multi-story buildings in Dubai? Does any Dominican have taken any apartments overseas?
Nope.
Or any of these apartments as well? Where did Dominica's money go over the past 24 years? How long will we be taking for a ride? How long will we stand by idly while our greenery is looted under our very eyes? How long will we be bludgeoned into poverty while the sellers of our passport build the luxury buildings in Dominica and Dubai? Are we not talked enough? What are we doing to take back our money? Are we not real men and women? How much has to be stolen before Dominicans stop the theft of their national possessions? And according to the great Bob Marley, when will we chase them crazy ballheads out of town?
Yeah.
So on our panel tonight, Dr. Andre, as you know, is one of Dominica's greatest advocates and is knowledgeable about reforms that have taken place throughout the Caribbean region. He will examine, I'm sure, the recommendations of Justice Williams as regards Dominica's justice system and the proliferation of cases that have been just there languishing, and particularly those of the persecution of opposition leaders who have been waiting 7 years for their case to be heard, but absolutely no evidence, and therefore they're just languishing. Their case keeps being postponed. Isn't it time that this case be nolly pros? That there be some move to dismiss those cases for want of prosecution? Mr. Simeon Joseph is a deep-thinking social scientist who understands the problems in our public sector and the society at large, and the actions that need to be applied to solve them. I hope he will share some of that, his knowledge and wisdom and experience in the public service with us tonight, help us with some solution. Dr. Thompson Fontaine, as you know, is a former IMF financial economist and the leader of UWP, the largest opposition party in Dominica. He understands what drives the private sector as the real engine of growth in Dominica. And the true meaning and implications of what is the most recent IMF report on Dominica's economy and what needs to be done to get it back on track. I'm sure Dr. Fontaine will assist us with that as well. But tonight, our panel and our cherished listeners and viewers will suggest what we all must do.
So no, I am not in the meeting right now. I am just reacting to the meeting that was had.
Do together to secure real reform electoral and campaign finance laws and regulations in the quickest possible time in order to put good governance in place and turn around the fortunes of Dominicans and Dominica by extension. I really do not have a lot of hope that what we might hear by the second week of April may be what is fully in the best interest of all of those groups in Dominica that put forward their proposals for reforms. And I'm not sure how closely this will fit with what the government might present, but we shall see. But tonight we will definitely delve into the period from 2000 to 2024, when this regime came into office and is still in office, and to see how many billions of dollars have passed through the hands of this DLP regime in office, from the many sources that have delivered the most money to any government in Dominica ever. What have they done with it? What has been done with all that money? Can anyone see what that money did for poor struggling Dominicans when you look around you, look at our lifestyles in Dominica? Why is the cost of everything still so high? Why are so many people not working? Why is the healthcare still so poor that so many Dominicans are apparently afraid to go to their own hospital for fear that they may not come out alive? We will look forward to concrete suggestions as to forward actions that patriots may wish to consider and how they can play a meaningful role in securing appropriate reform of the electoral and campaign finance laws and regulations to secure our much needed free and fair elections. So tonight I trust that my distinguished guests will make suggestions as to where Dominica should go from here to see native Dominicans prosper, rather than continue to see more land grabbing by foreign nationals, millions of dollars being sent out by foreign contractors and workers, while Dominican entrepreneurs and our very talented youth are displaced and are still losing their heritage as they stand aside and look at money simply passing them by and going away. We will examine why it is imperative that we embrace national unity again, all hands on the same deck, as was done by the Grand people 50 years ago, as was done in 1979 by all sectors in Dominica, to secure good, caring governance in our nature isle, and enable us to make ourselves truly economically independent in a democratic environment, as we see Dominicans now feeling a really terrific pinch, a really great pinch, painful pinch in their pockets. My distinguished guests, Dr. Andre, Mr. Simeon Joseph, and Dr. Thompson Fontaine, you, our cherished listeners, viewers, and callers from at home in Dominica, in the region, and globally, will call and help us expand and broaden the dialogue and opine on the merits and demerits of what we are witnessing in Dominica today in comparison to what transpired some years ago in Dominica as a whole. And as
So they pretty much, Dorian, they're pretty much talking about Dominica on a whole as to the state that Dominica is in and where Dominica can go forward, how it can go forward. Obviously, they're talking about things like electoral reform, and of course, Dr. Thompson most likely is going to give the understanding of the IMF results, what it means for Dominica, and of course, the others are just going to weigh in on their personal thought process on how they think Dominica should go forward and the things that are hindering Dominica. This is why I left Mr. G playing in the beginning of the reaction, so he will pretty much give a synopsis of what's going to happen.
We can see in our sister Caribbean territories around us, they're doing so much better than we are this time. So we invite you, our Q family and friends of Dominica, to stay with us on the radio, on television, on frequencies in Dominica, on our internet, on our Facebook and YouTube, and have your say as you do every Tuesday with me, Mr. G, on the Global View on Q, only on Q95, the big station. So, our usual, and a huge shout out, hugs and love and appreciation. A big thank you to our healthcare providers, our frontline workers, police and fire officers, teachers, doctors.
No, guys, I know I tend to give the healthcare providers, the police, all these individuals some blows. But sometimes, like I stated before, guys, you have to look at the root of the issue. And the root of the issue, most times, is the government. Just like when the nurses come out and protest and say, hey, we need this and we need that. That's as a result of the government not being able to provide the adequate funds and resources so that they can get the proper medications and equipments that is needed to carry out proper health care. The police officers, we see the police officers pushing a bus, their own bus, brothers and sisters. They were pushing their own bus in Roseau, asking for the help of other folks to help them push their bus. And apparently we hearing the problem with the bus, the police bus, is that the battery is not good and they have to tend to jog start the bus to start the bus instead of buying a battery because apparently they don't have the funds to buy the battery.
Nurses, public and private sector patriots at home and abroad, we welcome each and every Dominican and friend of Dominica to the Global View on Q. We embrace you wherever you are tonight, in every nook and cranny, in every village, every community at home in Dominica, in the region and globally. Thank you, Sherwin, again for keeping us on the air tonight. And
yes, Rasta Ozzy, I have heard that the Prime Minister saying he's going to be leading a delegation to go to China. That's why I asked the question, is it to the benefit of Dominica or are they going on a vacation? They're going to spree, and on whose pocket are they going on? Are they going on the treasury or they going on their own pockets? Or is the Chinese government handling that for them, which is, you know, a whole other situation. Jerry Nelson said, yes, the government, that's our problem. Yes, the government is the problem. But the government is the people. So therefore, the people who are voting for the government officials who are leading are the problem.
Tonight, thank you.
So the government and the people are the problem.
Bosso for being on the console. Lambi is not able to be here with us tonight. Lambi is not well, and we wish him all the best. We wish him a very, very speedy recovery. Sorry we could not have you here with us, Lambi, tonight. Wherever you are, if you're able to listen, we're reaching out to you to say hello and to wish you well, a very speedy recovery. So we will take your calls a bit later. The people's voice is always a priority on the Global View on Q. Engagement and hopefully learn lessons from extraordinary past accomplishments with a focus on the state of progress in securing reform, Dominica's electoral campaign finance laws and regulations, the state of governance in Dominica, the state of Dominica's economy in light of the most recent IMF report on the situation in our economy, the recommendations of Justice Williams as regards Dominica's justice system and the statement the president of the CC.
For those of you who don't know what the justice stated right there, he's pretty much pointing out that there's a lot of cases that need to be called, and it seems like they are just constantly wasting time, man. I've been a part of it, you know, brothers and sisters. I've been a part of this whole thing, wasting time. The government keeps wasting time, or the justice system is wasting time as a result of what the government is doing there, which means that there's most likely, or there can be labeled some sort of corruption happening there.
CJ on prime ministerial democracies compared to parliamentary democracies. This will hopefully inspire all of us to translate our great historic, economic, political, social, and cultural experience into taking some meaningful actions now for the future prosperity of all of our beloved people, our communities, our whole of Dominica as a whole, and set the path to a more meaningful future for our upcoming younger generation.
Okay. Showing on Sunday, I listened And I was very impressed as usual. And obviously, good night to all patriots and all listeners. This is obviously not a time to celebrate. I'm just
Nope.
going to make some opening remarks with respect to electoral reform. Let me invite those who had this wonderful meeting between that meeting on Sunday, to get ready to have an even more massive meeting, either immediately before or after the second week in April, when we're told Parliament will be discussing or dealing with the whole issue of electoral reform. We do not expect anything substantive, anything good about what is being proposed.
The Prime Minister keeps saying that he listened to the opposite side, the people, the citizens, but he keeps saying it as if in a way where he doesn't care what the people say. It is what he wants to put into the electoral reform. That's what is going to pass. So he's saying exactly what I'm feeling when it comes down to the electoral reform. And people need to review it, because it seems like they're just going to push this for the people to see. At least they see it, and then they're just going to pass it in Parliament. That should not happen at all.
What makes you think, let me ask our dear listeners, what makes you think for 1 minute that those who feared that true electoral reform would damage their winning legacy, that those who've run roughshod over the electoral laws over the last 3 or 4 electoral cycles, that those who have no belief or desire for true campaign finance reform,
all of a sudden have the vision to want to put electoral reform, the very thing that would hinder them from having or cheating the system. Interesting. Now they are so eager to push it off, brothers and sisters. That says something.
That those who believe that voters can come from anywhere around the globe and vote in any strategic constituency to ensure the winning legacy of the directorate. What make you think for 1 minute that you're going to get electoral reform in April? Electoral reform lies within the collective strength of Dominicans who hopefully have seen the light or are seeing the light, who hopefully have been inspired by the need for unity, to fight for unity and to fight for true electoral reform. What makes you think that those folks have any belief, any reason to want it? Do you think that they're reborn? Do you think that they've been reborn on the road to Damascus? That they got up 2 nights ago and said, you know, we were wrong. We should have elections which mean something. We should follow the example of Antigua, for example. It will not happen. What makes you think that it will happen? So let us confront the inconvenient truth. True electoral reform lies in the collective strength and unity of those who seek a proper functioning democracy. I'll have more to say about that. What about the criminal justice system? It hurts. All we can say is, the justice is not saying anything that we haven't heard before. We've heard all that, but it resonates more when a foreigner has to come and tell us what we've been saying all along. The system is dysfunctional.
Oh, yes.
The magistracy has been contaminated by the political process, and for good reason.
Everything has been corrupted, brothers and sisters. Not some. Every living thing has been corrupted. To the point where you think that this is normal. It is not normal at all. When one seed, brothers and sisters, if you have a bad apple with a set of good apples, and you refuse to remove the bad apples from amongst the good apples, it's going to contaminate the other apples. The rottening apple has been in the presence of good apples for so long that all the other apples are already rottening.
The justice talks about the length of the number of remands, persons who have not been tried but who are in custody. He's also hinted at the amount of time it takes for a simple matter to come to trial. But we know 7 years they're charged a charge without any evidentiary foundation, mind you, hanging over your heads or the heads of political opponents. The only mystery to me is, why has that not been challenged, particularly in the case where your constitution says everyone should be guaranteed a trial within a reasonable time?
Of course.
Why has that not been challenged? I don't know why. Courts are increasingly embarrassed.
No, I'm happy that he mentioned that, brothers and sisters. And I've heard a number of persons have the reference of saying that Dominica is like, or is getting like Haiti. The exact same thing that he's speaking about right there happens in Haiti. There are people who are in prison today in Haiti. I watched the documentary, guys. This is why you have to just inform yourself of how the world works and what is happening in certain places, and ask yourself why. I've watched the documentary when they're speaking about the prison systems in Haiti, and there are people who have been there for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years who are yet to have any redress in the matter. This is the same thing that is happening in Dominica. So think Dominica not like Haiti or worse than Haiti. Remember, I keep pointing out, Haiti GDP is much better than Dominica own. Keep that in mind. All right.
That stain on the criminal justice system. Because to have these charges over people who are presumed to be innocent, mind you, is to tantamount to having them drag across along the roads of Roseau. Because this is wrong by any type of measure. Mm-hmm. Any independent person, whether in the justice system or otherwise, will instinctively know that this is fundamentally wrong. It should not be allowed to continue. It will not happen in any of the other islands in the Eastern Caribbean. The system is broken, it's contaminated, blatantly so, and it is time that this thing is addressed. What about the IMF? I'm not going to say too much about it. Thompson Pontin is a big expert. But the IMF report has just shown why so many countries, particularly third world countries, want nothing to do with the IMF. It's an embarrassment. The IMF doesn't measure the misery index. It doesn't measure the corruption index. It doesn't measure the foreign ownership index. It doesn't measure the unjust enrichment index. I mean, look at their proposals for in terms of spending reform. One, a decline in wage bill should continue. But hold on. Didn't this electorate give themselves 30 to 50% increases in wages? And you are telling us that the decline in public wage should continue. Decline for who? Hear what they're saying again. Civil service reform. What does that mean? Is that compatible with persons who on a daily basis are going to various government ministries, police forces, etc., and saying, my pal rep sent me? That is the civil, you're talking about civil service reform, but you're not addressing the reality, because the reality is a negation of all that crap that has been proposed by the IMF. Mm-hmm. They're talking about increase in water and sewage rates. Dominicans are struggling with payment of utilities, whether it's electricity, water, whatever it is, phone bills and all these kinds of things. But the IMF think that a good remedy for Dominica would be increase in the water and sewage rates, a country where we boast of having how many rivers? 365
rivers. Free. It's not like somebody have to go and dig a well and then put pipe for people to get water. The water flowing on the land, brothers and sisters. They connecting pipes to this thing and they bringing it to your house. Fine, you want to connect pipes, great. But then you're talking about increasing as if the price of making water somehow increased from free to $10. Boy.
Payment for medical services, but hold on. The IMF is talking about payment, having the population pay for medical services. First of all, the political directorate, when they need such medical services, it's not that they don't pay. They fly away. Mm-hmm. Fly away to Zion to get medical treatment.
Yep.
There are persons who cannot afford.
And keep in mind, brothers and sisters, this is a medical facility that the government wants to make seem as if it is the best in the world. He says it can be compared to first world countries. The building looks nice, but the healthcare is not nice at all.
What is being suggested that they should pay at the hospital? The hospital itself is asking people to bring your own toilet paper, bring your own sanitary napkins, bring your own food, bring your own linen. And these folks are telling that one way to curb spending is to have people pay for medical services. But hear this finally, the final insult. The NEP should be reassessed. Did you say reassessed? Nope. But you were asking for the government to reduce the wage bill. So when you say the NEP should be reassessed, you mean the little $800 a month you're paying to these folk, some of whom you haven't paid for months, you are in effect telling the government, Gaso, you should reduce their wages even more.
So imagine the government increased wages, minimum wage. Didn't the government increase minimum wage? Yes, he did. And now he's saying that we need to redress that situation, readdress it to bring it down. Okay.
At a time when you're taking 30 to 50% increase.
Who is the government working for? Is the government working for the people when it's looking to bring down the wages after bringing it up a little? Or is it working for themselves when they have continuously been increasing their wages? You never hear government decrease their wages, brothers and sisters. I remember at one point in time, the government decreased their wages by 50%. Then they increased it a number of times after that. And now they increased it between 28 to 50%. And you're asking yourself, who is the government working for? And you think the government is working for the people of Dominica? Really? You work for the people of Dominica when it comes on to the medical fraternity, the medical sphere. You work for the people in the construction industry. You give it to the local people. It's going to the foreign, You work for the people when it comes down to increasing salaries, when it comes down to jobs, especially the public servants. You try your best to do something for the people. And instead, you are doing things for yourself. And I keep asking the question, who do you think the government is working for?
So the IMF, quite frankly, is an organization which has come up with a prescription for persistent poverty in Dominica. Nothing more, nothing less. I think these are my 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andre. There's so much to digest here. And so much of that we're going to discuss in a little bit more detail later as we go along. Because you've ended your brief opening remarks on the IMF, let me just go immediately to Dr. Fontaine.
Yeah.
Give us his opening remarks on that. I think you need
Mr. G, Simeon, Dr. Andre, Boss on the consoles, and of course to all of the Dominicans who are listening. A very special good night to all of you. And certainly we have a lot to talk about tonight. No less, one of the important discussions is the IMF report. But let us bear in mind that typically, the information that the IMF reports comes from the authorities. They visit the country, they talk to the authorities. The data they get comes from the authorities, and a lot of the information that they get comes from the authorities. So one of the things that I try to do is to separate what the authorities, what the government is telling them, and what they themselves are infusing into the conversation. And you'll find very often a lot of what is written in that report actually emanates from the countries itself. All right, the authorities. I mean, that is something I did for many, many years. Those same kind of missions in different countries across the globe, and that's what we do. We engage the local authorities, discuss with them. We look at the budget numbers, we look at the spending, we look at the revenues, we look at the sources, and we try to understand. Because bear in mind, this is not a program. This is just what is called an Article 4 consultation, which is once you become a member of the IMF, you agree that they will from time to time come to your country and look at the state of your finances, look at your balance of payments, look at your revenues, look at your expenses, and then try to help to see what is going on. Now, when there is a program, when you have a program with the IMF, which means you're actively borrowing from them, then it is a little bit different in the sense that now they begin to prescribe remedies that you have to follow. Okay, but that's not the case here. They may make suggestions to the country, but it is not binding. So I just wanted to be very clear on this. And so when you see issues like, increasing the water rates or taking the electricity rates,
it's not binding,
and so on, removing reimposing rather the value-added tax on DOMLEC, on electricity rates, that probably is coming from the government in the sense that is what they're saying, that they will try to raise the revenues. So why is the government in such a desperate situation?
So it seems like they want to pass it off as the IMF suggestions. Maybe that's something that they're looking at right there. But it seems like that information to try to increase things in Dominica came from the government. And we've heard that the government been talking about trying to increase, they say they're trying to readjust the electrical bill. They're saying the same thing for doing for the WASCO and a number of other entities that the people tend to use. Keep in mind, the government also uses this stuff, but it is the people paying for the government to use their stuff. So even if they increase prices, that means increasing prices is going to bring more taxes to them. And that means less money goes to you while they are unaffected.
Desperate situation because it's CBI revenues are falling like a stone. The CBI revenues are projected to fall.
Yes, guys, I would appreciate Jerry Nelson, big up yourself. Rasta Ozzy, big up yourself. Guys, click the thumbs up button for me right now. I would appreciate that. The like button. There's about 53 of you guys. Click the like button, guys. I would appreciate that right there. Thanks so much for doing so. And let's continue.
It was, according to the latest report, it was roughly $650 million in 2022, and it's now $354 million in 2023. That is a huge drop, and one that is likely to continue going forward. In other words, we very well might have begun to see the demise of the CBI program, given what has happened with the
and keep in mind, guys,
of visas by the United Kingdom.
Guys, keep in mind, this is not the first time they have been stating this, you know. I think about 7 years ago, they told these individuals involved, 7 or 5 years, 2016, 2017, around there. They told the folks that CBI is not a constant flow. At any moment, it can just drop. I think it's 2014, I think 2014, was it? Because I think it was sometime during election campaign when I remember it. Is that 2019 or 2014? One of them, brothers and sisters. Anyways, let's continue.
And now the European Union looking to impose visa restrictions on Dominica, we very well might be witnessing.
Looking to impose, he says. No, they are going to impose it. I saw the actually did the reaction on that one of Skerrit speaking about, you know, they're trying their best to see how they can, you know, get the European Union to not do what they are saying that they will be doing. You see, they try to meet different things and so forth and so forth. Well, you know, Skerrit, you know, comes to tell the Dominican people one thing, whereas the outside world views things from another angle. It's going to happen, brothers and sisters. It is going to. They told Washington, D.C. that's what they are planning to do. So it's just a moment in time before that hammer is dropped. And this is totally as a result of the Prime Minister of Dominica, Skerrit. Skerrit is the one that caused the CBI program to go down, you know. You know that, guys? Skerrit. He's the one who caused United Kingdom to remove visa-free access from Dominica. Because they ban people from coming to the country, and here these same people are buying Dominican passports to fly into UK. On top of that, there's criminals that have Dominican passports. So that should tell you, brothers and sisters, something else. They have to look for their national, or they have to look to protect their national security. So all these things happening, European Union coming to the picture, they had their stipulations saying, hey guys, you do this, do that, do this, do that. And then we'll keep it going. OCCRP brought the report stating, hey, look at this. 75% of passport souls was not reported to the Dominican people, which means that 75% or around that region of revenue was not sent to the home country. One of the stipulations the European Union had is that all revenues raised from the CBI program should go to the home country. They're making sure they say home country so you wouldn't have a mistake. Because if you're raising funds for Dominica, you know the home country is Dominica. It should not stay in Dubai and be building all sorts of hotels and what have you. None of which Dominica cannot have any stake in.
The end of the CBI
Teresa Dura, big up yourself for definitely tuning in. Good evening to you as well.
Revenues as we know it. Now, I was just making a quick count, and
Alpha Plus, big up yourself as well.
Trying to see the several billions of dollars, like the government's own reckoning, several billions of dollars came in. I mean, just for the 2 years, for example, looking at 2022 and 2023, that is over $1 billion in just 2 years. That actually came in through the consolidated front. We are not considering the billions of dollars that is still outside with persons like Anthony Hayden, who have been given carte blanche to hold on to a significant portion of the CBI revenues. These are revenues that come in otherwise, because we have two aspects to the CBI program: the 100,000 contribution for a passport, and the 200,000 where you buy into a property. Now, Hayden was controlling that aspect of it. The real estate aspect of it was controlled by Hayden. So a significant amount of monies would be channeled through that. That has not come in through the consolidated fund of Dominica. It has not come in through it. But even with what has come in, that has been a huge amount of money. But what have we seen? We've not seen the government do anything, for example, to increase the salaries of the public servants. And now, to the contrary, they're talking about reducing the wage bill, as Dr. Andrew pointed out, reducing the wage bill, looking at the NEP program. Probably speak for it is time to get rid of this program.
When they say reducing the wage bill, brothers and sisters, that means people going to be unemployed. Okay, just so you guys know, more people are going to be unemployed in Dominica.
Because they were very clear to say that the NEP has reached it has gone beyond what it was intended to accomplish. And so it is something that the government has to try to remove or reduce or reorganize. So all of those measures there are coming as a direct result of where we are now with this
CBI
huge
program.
decline in revenues. Now, why is that important? If you consider, for example, that when we had a major shift in Dominica's economy in the early 1990s with the loss of the banana export. Bear in mind, when we lost the banana export, these were all revenues coming into individuals, all right? The majority of the monies coming into Dominica at that time was money coming to individuals.
Yep.
It was not because the banana industry was hardly taxed. Farmers were not paying taxes, except probably when they went to buy goods and services, they would pay a value-added tax or sales tax or something. But that is different now. You're talking about monies that are coming directly into the government that is used to pay for goods and services. So it makes it extremely more difficult. It makes the impact probably 10, 15, 20 times more more disastrous. It will be more greatly felt because now you're talking about the government's ability to continue to service the hospital, to continue to service the education, to buy chalkboards, to buy different school supplies and so on. You're talking about its ability to service its $300 program that it does for the elderly, to do the NEP. So it's a tremendous shock that we are witnessing there on the Dominican economy. And the question is, how is government going to deal with it? So I think if I would say anything added to this particular aspect of it, is to tell Dominicans to tighten their waist because difficult times are ahead. It's going to be extremely difficult. You will witness increase in taxes because that's one way government is going to try to.
And brothers and sisters, I would understand if the increase in salaries was somehow related to the high income that the Dominican people tend to receive. But Dominicans already receiving one of the lowest in the Caribbean when it comes down to wages. And then to have an increase in taxes on the already low income that you're making, and you think that somehow that is going to be a benefit to the people? I mean, come on, people. All you we gonna affect we?
To offset that huge shock, they're going to try to increase taxes and they're going to try to reduce their wage bills. And they're going to try to reduce the service bills. So persons who, for example, have been waiting to be paid their LPOs, they probably have to wait a lot longer because the government simply will not have the monies to pay it. So we are in for a very difficult time in Dominica. That's one. The second thing I would like to talk just very briefly before I make way for the other speakers and to continue our discussion is what I think is extremely hurtful to me. The fact that this government in 2024 is not given any kind of work to our local contractors. I'm seeing the schools being built in Calabishi, schools being built in Goodwill in Pottersville area, and all of that is being done by Chinese contractors. So that tells me that the government of Dominica does not believe that the people of Dominica can build their own country, can build buildings as they've done in the past. All of the buildings in Dominica up to right before probably the last couple of years were built by Dominican contractors. Locals were given jobs on those projects, and our money was being used to develop Dominica and to develop Dominicans. And the pride of place that local contractors had, all of that is gone. This government sees absolutely no value in our buildings, and I'm very troubled by this.
Of course.
It is painful to think that the government is using Dominica's money, using taxpayer money or monies for the CBI program, does not see it fit to employ local contractors to construct school buildings, apartment buildings. This is an utter disgrace, and this is something that the people of Dominica should be making more noise about. I cannot believe that we're sitting quietly by and allowing this government to continue to disrespect our people, to continue to downplay the skills and the potential of our Dominicans that have so much to offer, and not give them a place to be able to contribute to the development of our country in a way that they are used to doing. This is hurtful, this is painful, and this is something that the government of Dominica need to reverse. It needs to begin to put those contracts into the hands of local contractors. It needs to begin to do the movement of whether it's aggregate or sand or tariffs, whatever it is, into the hands of the local truckers. We need to empower our people. We need to empower our Dominican people, our Dominican workers, our carpenters, our masons, our truckers. This needs to be done. And Dominica, it is time to take a stand. We talk about a lot of different things, but that is something I really want to put the focus on squarely, this continued dissing of the Dominican public by this government. and we need to stand up against it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Thompson, for your opening remarks here. And essentially, as I go to Simeon, I mean, Simeon, you have a lot of experience in the public service. You've seen the way the public service worked in better days, under better circumstances, in better times, in the banana days, just after that. And you've seen what is happening today. And you can see already, you're the kind of guy who's a kind of bridge from what was happening before to what is happening now. When you witness what has been happening over the last 20 years versus what really the best practices in the public service, how does that make you feel? I mean, what do you think about what you've witnessed happening there? You're muted.
Coming after Dr. Andre and his overview of what I would consider his own social reality, and Dr. Fontaine from his perspective, I'm just mindful of, if I were to answer your question, just in a circumventing way, so to speak, because that's a very wide discussion to have. First of all, I will answer how I feel by pivoting to the Dominican people in a while. So, listening to what the conversation that has been held before, we hear words like electoral reform, we hear words of political organization. I heard the word democracy, I heard the word governance, economics, justice, social issues, and cultural issues. I think there is one word that comes to mind as the fulcrum. You know, in physics, you have the fulcrum, okay? Anybody who hasn't, you know the role of the fulcrum in physics. I think there's one word that comes to mind, and that word is stability. Or instability, however you want to look at it. Stability or instability. Because all those words that were mentioned earlier will direct our attention to where we are in Dominica. And especially in light of the fact that electoral reform seems to be now an elusive dream. I have come to the realization after listening to the government the past 2 months, we're not going to get electoral reform in Dominica. And that is where that's where governance comes in, because electoral reform is supposed to usher in a certain kind of hope of a process whereby the governed will resume responsibility and ownership for their governance. That's what electoral reform is going to do. It's not just going to change the landscape or the political landscape or the election landscape. To me, electoral reform is supposed to usher in a new opportunity where the governed, the people, the population, the populace, out of which the word politics comes from, will assume responsibility for their own governance. Now, as a precursor to this evening's program, we heard of the report, and the IMF report, which has been discussed. And of course, we have heard the report of the judge. So the IMF report is an economics report. And the report from the judge, and mark it as the second one, because there was one in December. Just December gone, there was the same judge who spoke at the end of the September assizes. It's a very scathing review on the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution and the lawyers in Dominica. And let's not forget, before that, Mr. Stephen Astafan, who was in Dominica for a short while, also had some scathing remarks for the judicial system in Dominica. What does that say? What does that say about justice? And when we listen to the IMF report, what does that say about the economics of the country? But these are just written reports. Mm-hmm. To me, this is where I'm going to answer your question. The greatest report in Dominica is not the state of our economy or the state of our legal system. The greatest report in Dominica is what is the state of the Dominican people? What is the state of our young people, our elderly?
That's the right question to ask. What is the state of the Dominican people? Is it better 10 years? Is it better now than it was 10 years ago? I mean, we have to ask ourselves a question. There was a particular individual I was talking to a few days ago, and he told me that back in the day he was a teacher, and I think he was receiving $90 per month. And then he asked me a question, which I then asked him a question. I'm asking him on the basis of what his salary of $90 way back in the day meant, and what his salary would be equivalent today, if it would be more or if it would be less. Because he told me $90 per month was paying a lot of his bills. He had spending power with $90 back in the day. Now imagine you getting $2,000 and you don't have spending power, brothers and sisters, something is wrong.
What is the state of our public servants? What is the state of our unemployed? What is the state of our farmers and our fishermen and our carpenters and our plumbers? What is the current state? What is the report that these people can now say about Dominica? And to my mind, I think that is why I said to me earlier on, the fulcrum in all of this discussion has to be stability. And so we have to think about what is our economic stability and what is our political stability. Two heavyweights upon which the development of any country rests. And so if, and Dr. Thompson is there, and I mean, the most I can share is my little A-level economics from C6 from college, okay? or my little economic that I did in political science. I cannot by any measure try to match up to his plate. So I can only go with my A level or my politics and economics and politics trading, you know. But so it brings the question, if we have to discuss all of that tonight, the stability of the country. I'm sure he will agree with me, rest on how stable or unstable economically a country is, and how stable or unstable politically. And the two are intertwined. They are not divorced. They are not separate. Okay? And so if the economy refers to the wealth and the resources of a country, and it is dependent on the relationship between the basic of supply and demand, if economic stability is supposed to occur when the economy is strong and inflation and unemployment rates are low, when consumer spending is supposed to be high, and there's an average increase in income and businesses are thriving, that's when you gauge whether a country has a certain level of economic stability. These are the ingredients for economic stability. Okay? Low inflation, low unemployment rates, high consumer spending, good income from the average citizen, and businesses are thriving. Let us reflect that. Let us impose that reality on Dominica and ask those questions. What's the inflation rate in Dominica? What is the unemployment rate in Dominica? Can people spend? Where do people have the power? Do our consumers have the power to spend? Are our people gaining adequate, reasonable, and sufficient income so they can live satisfied lives? What is the state of our local businesses in Dominica? So that's a question we have to ask. Then when it comes to measuring economic instability, we have to ask the question, how weak is our economy? How weak are our consumers? Are our consumers able to spend? And are our businesses suffering? These are the questions we have to ask in Dominica. What is the state of the business? Are our businesses in Dominica suffering? Are they strong? Are they thriving? Are they making a profit? Can people pay their bills on time and have extra cash? Does the average person have enough income in their pocket so they can pay their bills and buy the food and pay their utilities and live a life that is comfortable? Can we say that? And what is the state of our economy? Now, there's one question I think I would like Dr. Thompson to address tonight. And that is the massive construction of houses by the government. And I know from my following of information on economics, I know there's something called the housing bubble, where if you don't have enough houses in a country, it may lead to high prices. But if you have a preponderance of houses, okay, that could lead to a housing bubble. I hope you will clarify that later. So
Demand and supply, inflation value of money, and the money value of money itself.
I want to relate that to what was all these houses that are being built in Dominica and being given free of charge to people. I think we need to analyze that tonight.
He's right, because the more houses you have in a particular area, the more expensive other houses coming up will be. So yeah, that makes sense too.
What is the impact on that on our economy in terms of the economic thing? So we have to look at that. And then what I would like us to also consider tonight, having spoken about our economic stability or instability, is our political instability. And what is the correlation between economic stability and instability, or economic and economic stability and instability, as to the level of harmful malaise that exists in our society today, and to what extent that we can say that the political instability that perhaps exists in Dominica today, how does that impede our economic growth as a country?
In total, 100%. If you have a corrupt political standing in the country, in any country, brothers and sisters, it's going to lead to chaos. Because when you're looking at corrupt countries, you are thinking of the opposite of corrupt, meaning fear, fearful. Not there's fear and there's been fear. If you get my drift. In corrupt countries, they create fear. Whereas in non-corrupt countries, they promote a fear playing field for individuals, if you get my point right there. So in the political arena, if there's corruption within politics, you're going to have fear happening in that particular country, whereas the ability to be fair is not there.
And how quantitatively important are the effects of political instability on the main drivers of our growth, namely our total factor of productivity and physical and human capital accumulation? These are questions that I would like to raise tonight as we speak, because in a nutshell, I could say in simple terms, can Dominica go anywhere?
That's good. That's a good question.
Based on the economic reality that we are in now and the political reality that we are in now. And that is why I asked the question when you asked me, how do I feel? How I feel goes back to how the Dominican people are. I feel for the Dominican people.
But do the Dominican people feel for themselves, though?
I feel sad that public servants cannot make ends meet. I feel sad that the average young person doesn't seem to be able to see their way in Dominica. I feel sad that our nurses and our policemen and our firemen and our public servants are not able to see their way, that our teachers are basically scraping to make ends meet. I feel sad that our farmers do not have exports, that our farmers cannot see their way. That's how I feel. And really and truly, in the midst, as I said, of all the reports that there can be from wherever, I think the greatest report that we need to consider tonight is the report of the average Dominican citizen.
Yep. That's how you know what growth is. Within the people. This is why I'm not Labour Party. I'm not work. Well, I myself can never be Labour Party. But I am not Labour. I am not workers. I'm not Freedomite. I'm not APPite. I'm not UPPite. I'm not UPAite. I don't know. I'm not Papiite. And none of these things. I tend to look at the economy, one, and I look at the people. If I see the economy is flourishing and the people are going down, then something is wrong. If I see the people are flourishing and the economy is not doing well, something is wrong. Because they both coincide with each other. If I see the people are suffering and I see the leaders at the top are enriching themselves again, richer and richer, to the point where people are looking at it and saying, boy, well, that is how it is. Not realizing within themselves that they have the power to change it. Something is wrong.
Yeah, well, thanks for those opening remarks. Very, very poignant, very dynamic opening remarks. The reason why I asked you, Simeon, how you feel is because I was hoping that you would, and you in fact did, express the way you feel, which I believe is a reflection of the way every ordinary person feels in Dominica, except a select few.
Thinking people, ordinary thinking Dominicans. You have to differentiate between them. Because there are Dominicans who just go off feelings. And there are Dominicans who actually use critical thinking to make decisions. There are also those who know what's going on, but because they're getting the money, they're quiet. I know a number of them like that, you know. Some of the ministers are just like this. They know exactly what is going on in the economy, but because they are getting their high-paying salary that they would not normally get if they were working within the normal citizenry of Dominica, then they refuse to say anything. They are quiet. So when their salaries increase, why should they even come to say, hey, you know, this and that, or talk against the government? Why should they? The people are the ones responsible for this, and they're not doing it. So why would the ministers come forth and say, hey, I want to get less money if I talk? You see how it goes, guys?
Right? Who have many, many privileges. But I believe everything that you've said tonight reflects the way the people, ordinary people in Dominica feel. When you talk about consumer confidence, for example, obviously, how can you have consumer confidence and consumer spending if the income is not there? If people are not working, if the contractors that they idly buy, their trucks not working, and they have to pay, you pay whatever loans that they took to buy them. So, I mean, I'm going to go to Dr. Andre first to go back to the whole question of instability, because I feel, do they go overseas? So this question of political instability, isn't that a reflection of what the judges are telling us? These illustrious judges, what they say, these smart judges are telling us about our justice system. Why should people feel it's a stable situation? You know, if you open your mouth and talk, they arrest you and then put you in there for 2 days and then it takes 7 years to build a case. How can you feel confident in an environment where if you ask about your $6 or $7 or $8 billion that's missing, people want to take you to court and tell you, look, go to court and prove it, and then take 10 years to prove it in court while you're spending money on lawyers?
Because and not only that though, also asking the Prime Minister about the increase in salaries that they take for themselves. And when asked, doesn't that affect or wouldn't that affect the country? He's then responding to the journalist, aka Matt, speaking, stating to Matt that he doesn't believe that people or journalists should ask them that question.
We know the justice system, as the judges told us, is really broken. And all these cases are languishing for years. So what sense does it make trying to take these people to court? And you cannot get a case for 7 years without any evidence. Back to Dr. Andre.
Well, I hope the judge reflects, and his colleagues also, that they have a role to play in the proper functioning of the justice system. I hope they realize that if they don't play that role, they become complicit in what they complain about. We know that there are significant issues with the magistracy, but the problems are not limited to the magistracy. Bear in mind that not too long ago, we had a judge who laid like a vow. Well, she was in Dominica for 13 years, which was very much in contravention of the policy that a judge should only be in a certain island for a limited number of years to avoid contamination, to avoid being infected with the virus of partiality.
Yeah.
And under that judge, who was a known sympathizer of the political directorate, many cases became buried. Cases which did not have the privilege of Lazarus to be resurrected. Because arguably that was part of the whole unsorry scheme of things. So that is basically where we are. But the justice system is just a symptom of a more general malaise. And you've talked about that in various programs. There's been a breakdown of all the vital organs of a proper functioning democracy.
Every single one of them. And you know why I know this, brothers and sisters? Because I spoke about this years ago before it happened. I said the government them are going to make themselves kings. And not only just make themselves kings, but if you look at dictators, brothers and sisters, they go after every single organization that they know will affect them. They go after the police, they go after the health, they go after everything you can think of, the justice system. They go after everything so that they can contaminate them. When they contaminate them, they are rulers over the system. So if there were any sort of corruption that would come up and say, hey, look at this, they would then bury these things from coming, or the police would not go and arrest these people for breaking the laws. We know there have been a number of laws that have been broken. We know there's a number of things that need to be done when it comes down to the justice system, especially things like bribery and treating, which the CCJ stated that should be heard. And then when it came back to Dominica, they threw the case out. Isn't that corruption, brothers and sisters? That is corruption.
Whether it's the IPO, whether it's the Electoral Commission, whether it's the Office of the General Auditor, you name it. They all have been affected by the same malady, and they haven't been resurrected by any type of medication. It is Dominicans who have to free themselves from this slowly encroaching, a pit of mud.
It's not slowly encroaching, no, sir. Are you in Dominica? It's not slowly encroaching at all. It is here, and it has been here for a while.
They are slowly being drowned because economically they've been starved. The government is talking about increasing the cost of services. They're talking about retrenchment in the public service, and I hope the public unions listen to this very carefully. Some of them they have their heads in the sand.
Yep.
They're talking about retrenchment. We haven't heard anything about expanding opportunities for local businesses. We haven't heard anything for expanding opportunities for farmers.
12 businesses have closed down for the year so far that I know of. And I'm trying my best to make sure I put them out there bit by bit when it happens. So folks, if you know any businesses that is closing down, you send it for me so I can put it up. So far I have, for the year, I have numbered 12 of these businesses that have closed down. 12. For the year 2024, we're on the third month, brothers and sisters. 12 businesses have closed down.
What we've heard, for example, the billing of hotels at a time when the occupancy rate is perhaps less than 25%. But who's billing it? Cronies, narcissists, those who are playing ball with the political directorate. So this is nothing to boast about. What is the occupancy rate of a hotel formerly known as Kempinski? You tell me. So what kind of wealth and income and employment are these institutions generating? How much money has been spent on this geothermal initiative? Hundreds of millions. What do we have to show for it? I heard even the labels in Portsmouth are complaining, are protesting. They will provide more light at a lower cost than all this expenditure.
Even the
for
labels.
geothermal energy. So we have nothing to boast about. We have nothing to be happy about. If you are known or believed or suspected not to play ball with the political directorate, you and your relatives are victimized. Is any reference to any of that in any type of observation or report, whatever you want to call it, of the IMF? Of course not. They're not interested in these issues. They're interested, whether they know it or not, implicitly or explicitly, in painting a fine gloss over what we know is a living hell in Dominica, to a point where it's an open secret now that members of the judiciary, in terms of the rule of law, they know that Dominica is a basket case. That is the sad reality we have to contend with. That is why we have to be motivated by what Martin Luther King described as the fierce urgency of now. What are we doing now? What type of peaceful initiatives are we taking now to free ourselves from this sorry scheme of...
The no factor, brothers and sisters. It's no. Whereas people waiting for somebody else to do something when they should be doing things. No. No, brothers and sisters, not tomorrow. Keep in mind, no happened 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they say, give him a chance. Fine. 5 years later, 15 years ago, the man screw up the place. They say, okay, we don't know. 10 years ago, the man there for 11 years, 10 years ago. You've seen how bad things are going. You still decide to put him back. 10 years later, we are in the state that we are in Dominica, brothers and sisters. And you think that you are elevating. I always used to say, I remember the man in Kalibishi saying scared ruined his dream. Scared has ruined a lot of our dreams. A lot of our dreams have been ruined by Scared. Because some of us are still trying to find our way. Still trying to find our way. Thank God, United States picked me up. But a lot of people are still trying to find their way.
Things entire. That is where we are. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Andre. And just before I go to you, Dr. Fontaine, I just want to just raise this issue as we talk about instability and governance. You know, I am kind of losing confidence in the system that we have now. And the judge, you know, touched on it. I mean, the thing is not working. You have the legislative branch appointing judges, having a hand in appointment of judges, having a hand in financing the judicial system, having a hand in appointing magistrates and DPP and Attorney General, and appointing presidents. What kind of system is that? When the framers of our Constitution, when they put the Constitution together, they assume, one of the fundamental errors they made, they assume that every single person who was going to be a prime minister or minister of government would be a gentleman, gentle lady, not a rogue or a vagabond.
Yep.
Not somebody who would have their personal interest only at stake and not that of the people. I don't think they made that, they thought about that at all. And that's the reason why, although we're supposed to have 3 branches of government, just separate and independent, we really don't effectively, we don't, because you have the legislative branch where the prime minister is in charge. In fact, the Constitution makes no provision of political parties. They don't tell political parties what to do, how to do a business. So a leader of a party who may be a rogue and a vagabond, but who has access to deep pockets, who pick sources of money, they come and say, all right, I'm going to select all the 21 candidates. I'm going to put money in their pocket so they can win and let the people see a large of money. And then so these people come to cabinet and they're not really beholden to the constituents, they're beholden to the man who selected them and gave them money. And so they win, I owe it to him.
Exactly.
And then whatever this man says goes to the cabinet. But then that cabinet controls the parliament because the eyes have it. So whatever the cabinet says.
Guys, that is exactly what I was saying earlier on in an interaction, a reaction I did earlier. That's exactly what I stated. The man put in who he want to represent the people, not the people put in who they want to represent them. To have effective representation, and they will constantly complain about the PALREP saying, hey, or PALREP's not doing this, and our PALREP's not doing that, but you never put that person there to represent you. The government put that person there to represent them, so when the PALREPs are not doing anything, you complaining, but you voted for the very people. You should have your own people in there. Look at Grand Bay. The man came in, Vince came in with so much promises, they even started doing work on the park. I used to pass by the park, I did inter-schools in the park. I know the park used to look. The man started work. Brothers and sisters, you would swear before Vince came, you swear it's a cattle ranch that there. High bush growing, brothers and sisters, high bush. Grass everywhere. The man started the work on the park when he was coming in. Well, not him, but the government pretty much started the work for them. And after he won elections, you don't hear nothing about. I heard Grand Bay people saying, but where Vince now? I've heard Grand Bay people saying that. Ah, boy. Well.
Becomes law. And the point is, and when you get to the judiciary, then it means that this police or the DPP or the AG, whoever is bringing those cases, I mean, they keep getting those cases, but oh, we couldn't make it to the witness wasn't able, the documents were, that person is sick. 7 years people are waiting, and this Judge Williams said, look at the number of the backlog of cases that we have. So I'm getting, I think we will come back to that a little later as I come to you, Thompson, because I believe we need to make a change in our system. I really believe we do. And I'm going to make some, I've made those recommendations on this program before. I will reiterate them tonight. But Thompson, let me go over to you because, there's so much has been said by Simeon, by Dr. Andre, about the instability question, the question of the economics, the situation of our economy. You remember, and you have notes, you studied this thing when Dominica used to export what? Foreign earnings about 160, 180 million from bananas. I mean, and Dr. Andre made a point. I think Simon made a point. This money was going straight to the farmers. But today, all these billions of dollars go to the government. They do all kind of things, and we don't see what they're doing with it. They've never bothered to strengthen the pillars of the economy or the pillars of the
Are you guys hearing me? No audio. Oh, guys, sorry about that. uh, yeah, my thing went down. My audio went down. Okay, good. Guys, what I was trying to say is, I remember speaking to this lady some years ago. And she was, that was when JJ was running for Portsmouth. And I remember this lady, she saw us, in the gathering around Borough Square. And this lady came up to us making noise because JJ was talking about the CBI program being utilized properly. And the lady was asking JJ if that money is his own. So I decided, while JJ was talking, she interrupted him. So I decided I'm going to go after that lady myself. So I started asking the lady, don't you want to know where the money is? Don't you want to know what the money can be used for? The lady said it's scarce money. She told me that there's scarce money. Let the man use the money how he wants. So human beings are literally thinking that way. They are literally thinking that way. Boy, and we expect to elevate? I mean, come on. How we expect to elevate with that thinking? Anyways, guys, let's continue.
Democracy. And so today we're seeing the economy is failing and this money is dwindling. So we did not bother to restructure agriculture or tourism or processing or manufacturing knowledge industries. These were the pillars, but now these pillars are weak. Structures are weak. So Thompson, let's get some of your thoughts on some of those, how this impact the instability, the political and economic instability of the country.
Yeah, this is something that we have to look at very, very closely, because it really speaks to the heart of the problem and the issues we're having in Dominica. Because this government has failed to develop the productive sectors of the economy, we have the issues that we're having. So they failed to invest in agriculture, for example. They failed to put the farmers on their feet. They failed to invest. I remember one time the government promised to have two boats, one from the north, one from the south. Empty promises. The
pie in the sky promises, brothers and sisters. The government makes so much promises. There is not even a pie in the sky. There's just the sky. He's just making sky, brothers and sisters. No longer pie.
They've never revived the agriculture sector. They've never gone on any sustained replanting activity, whether to replant bananas or coconuts or nothing, or citrus. So they have not invested in agriculture, for one thing, which is the mainstay of the economy. So if you're talking about stability, you're talking about pillars of the economy that can help sustain you, so that in difficult times you are sustained. If those pillars are rotted, or if those pillars are not solid, then the economy is wobbly. It increases the number of persons, for example, who now depend upon a handout from government. So now we have a number of persons who at one time were productive in society, who would be employed within the agriculture sector or within the construction sector. These individuals now find themselves depending upon the governmental largesse. Now it is okay when there is government has, but as we are coming into a situation where that is all going away, then you're going to have more instability, you're going to have more problem, because those pillars have not been established. One of the things that we kept saying over and over and over again, that this government should have done with all of these billions of dollars that was coming into the country over the last 15, 20 years, was that these money should have gone into something sustainable. So by now, we should have built up a strong manufacturing sector based on our agriculture. We should have built up a very strong agriculture sector. We should have built up a very strong tourism product and sector. We should have built up a very strong services sector. So all of those areas, we should have been able to put money from the CBI program into those that would make it sustainable. By that I mean something that could last, something that would create jobs, would keep making money. So over time, it supports itself. Because, for example, if you have a factory, and for our listeners, it's as simple as this. If you are working in a factory that is selling goods, so let's assume you have an agro-processing factory that is making box juices. So you're selling box juices. Every year, you convert your oranges, your grapefruits into juice, and you're selling those. You're getting the money from this. So you're constantly refined. You're constantly getting more and more. It is sustained because you can continue for hundreds of years after, because you're making something that people want. People are buying it. You're getting the resources. Now compare
and especially Thompson, when the bulk of what you're making is exported, so you're foreign earnings.
Exactly. So that strengthens your foreign earnings as well. Now compare that with a situation where you are told, now I will give you $800 to go on the roadside and clear the brush on the roadside. Yeah, where that $800 coming from? It is coming from a finite pool. It is not a renewable resource. It's not being renewable. It's not sustainable. And that's what we were saying all along. We're saying, it's good to employ people, but employ them in a productive resource.
I agree.
Something that can sustain itself, something that can make money over and over and over again. And the government missed the mark. And because they've missed the mark, we are at that point of economic instability. And CBN asked the question about the housing stock. that is something else, because when you housing is usually a very good indicator of the health of the economy.
Yeah.
If you have a strong economy, a stable economy, as Simeon pointed out, the different things that he looked at, low unemployment, where you have high or average incomes and so on, and you look at all of the elements of a sustainable economy, housing, people can now be taking loans, going to the bank because they have good steady incomes. They can go to the bank, borrow from the bank, build. So they're building up the financial sector while at the same time they're building up the housing stock and they're building up our investment stock, if you like. So the country continues to grow over that. Now, when you begin to offer people free homes, it has the impact. Well, firstly, it means that the people who are getting those free homes most likely cannot afford them.
Yeah.
Okay. Because these persons are not working. So already you have a problem there. Because it means that whatever stock it is that you're building over time, it is going to devalue because it will not be maintained. The persons who are living will not have the resources to maintain it. Government says, well, it's up to you to maintain it. They no longer have the money. It is going to create that problem. But worse, it is going to make it, the level of stability comes where now, instead of persons now who could afford and who could have gone to the bank to take a loan and sustain the economy in that way, they are no longer doing that because they're getting a free good.
Yep.
All right. So either way you look at it, it works against the
It creates a sense of laziness as well.
kind of economy you want to build. It works against the sustainability of the economy that you want to establish. And that is the problem that we are having. We have a situation where the most of the money, and to make matters worse, in our particular situation, a lot of the monies that were paid to construct those homes, they are all going overseas. Years ago, when there was construction in Dominica, it was being done by our local carpenters or masons or joiners and so on. Local people were getting that money in their hands to spend within the economy. That is no longer the case. Okay, so we are actually building an economy on sand in Dominica, so to speak.
Yeah.
Very shaky. And at the end of the day, what we're going to see is all the elements of instability. The first thing we're going to find very low incomes within the country instead of high incomes. You're going to have very high unemployment instead of the low level of unemployment that you have. You're going to see a situation where everything in the economy begins to go down. Okay, so people's desire to work, even people's wanting to work, the population will continue to shrink because people find it easier to migrate than to stay and suck salt in Dominica. So that is the problem that we have, Sheridan.
Everything Dr. Thompson spoke about here is actually happening in Dominica right now. There is mass migration taking place. I think it was earlier on where an individual was saying that he called someone to see if he can get something done, and then he realized that that person is overseas. I think it was the very Thompson Fountain himself that spoke about this. There are a number of friends of mine, brothers and sisters. I grew up from Dominica State College. I grew up in individuals wanting to do things, who wanted to become police, who wanted to become nurses and doctors. Brothers and sisters, I have a lot of nurses and doctor friends. I have a lot of nurses and doctor friends who were in Dominica. Some of them went to school to study in Cuba or in the United States or wherever. They are now doctors in these places. But I knew nurses and doctors in Dominica. All of them, not some, every single one of them left Dominica to find better for themselves as a result of the poor conditions in the hospital. And this is not now, I'm talking about. I'm talking about years ago. There's someone I knew who went to school for nursing in Dominica. She's going to be leaving as well. So doesn't that tell you how Dominica is going? Or maybe I'm delusional.
Until and unless we address it. And I suspect now it might be too late for this government. Quite frankly, I don't believe after 20 years they have the ideas. That is a government that appears to be extremely tired. I heard the Prime Minister in his press conference today sounding extremely tired and wishing that he was somewhere else. That is somebody you could just tell from his whole answers to questions. He's behaving like somebody who wishes that he was somewhere else, but in Dominica, having to deal with the problems that he has to face now.
But he created it.
The Dominican public deserves better. And
of course.
We need to demand better. We absolutely need to demand better in Dominica.
Oh, certainly, we certainly have to demand a lot more. And I'll tell you why. Just to add a little something before I go to Simeon, and soon we have to go over to Bosso to take some calls, but just to add a little something to that housing situation there, Simeon. I mean, clearly, the way governments operated in the past, before the last 24 years, right, in terms of housing, and you would know, we all know, we saw it, the way it was done. First of all, the economy was more stable because you had farmers exporting stuff, earning foreign exchange so they could build their own homes. You had manufacturers making lots of employing a lot of people and exporting stuff so they could keep on buying raw materials from local sources like cocoa.
Wait, are you guys hearing me? Are you guys hearing now? Okay.
Yes,
All
let's
right.
just measure the housing transformation in Dominica now
Right.
versus 70 to 80s, where the farmers of Dominica and the public servants literally transformed the geographical spaces in Dominica. Canefield, Wallhouse, Castle Comfort, Leopoldville. There are many, Belfast, Canefield East, Mount Daniel. There are many places in Dominica today where the topographical landscape of Dominica was transformed by hard-working Dominicans who were earning a living and being able to go to the bank independently, confidently, and happily take loans and build houses to secure for themselves and their families. One. Secondly, in the rural areas, from Dalis to Portsmouth on the eastern side of Dominica, the people who transformed the housing landscape were the farmers. Woodford Hill, Wesley, Marigot, Calibishi, Cassibruce, Grand Fond, La Plaine. It was the farmers who went and toiled the soil, who could go and sometimes, I remember when I worked in the aid bank, there were farmers who would take a loan of $50,000 this week and come back and bring $25,000 the next week and pay it off. And Mr. Libler at the time would tell us, oh, no, when they were getting their checks from DBJ and Dominica Coconut Products and Coconut Rehabilitation and all those kind of things there, Mr. Libler would plead with us to ask the farmers to keep the money in the bank, do not pay off the loans. Guys would come in and take their loan for their four-wheel drives in June, and by December it was paid off. That was the reality of Dominicans then, who had the capacity to build their own countries. But you see, in speaking of all of this, and that is why I particularly asked Dr. Thompson about the housing thing, because you see, to compare how that was done, you see, when we think of houses that were built in the past, the difference, you see, is you had a government that was building houses for people. So all the housing efforts in the past were done by governments who were building houses for people. This government is building houses for itself to make a political statement. That's all. They are not building houses to empower, to enhance, and to better people's lives. They are going on these macro housing projects to just build hundreds of houses all over Dominica to make a statement politically that they are building houses not for people, because the people do not have the certificates of title. We have heard statements where by the stroke of a pen I can take it from you.
Of course.
And we have people are being forced to vote for the government if they want the house or want to keep the house.
Wait, guys. There's a bit of an issue here right now. There's a big issue right now, brothers and sisters. I'm gonna need you guys to like the video for me, please. What is going on right now, man? Guys, like the video for me, please. I know it's Friday. Some of you guys want to be outside. Me myself, I wouldn't mind being outside myself, brothers and sisters, but this is very important. This is very important. Click the thumbs up button for me, please. I would appreciate that. Can you guys do me this honor right there? Nikron Duran is saying, I love how these men talk. You can actually understand. They actually answering the questions. Scared have to make a ring, a rosy, and what? And he still doesn't answer the question. Yeah, we have noticed this ourselves, brothers and sisters, because when Scared is asked a question, he wants to go all over the place and then completely forgets the question that you ask. And then he moves on. The journalists in question need to then bring back the question and say, hey, thanks for answering that way, but this is what I asked, and put it back on them. But apparently some of them are fearful of not having their positions once again. So with that stated, brothers and sisters, can you click the thumbs up button for me, please? I know some of you guys clicked, but not all of you guys clicked right there. There's about 80 of you guys inside there. We need the thumbs up button to go up, guys. Click the thumbs up button for me, please. Yes, guys. Click the thumbs up button for us to continue right there. Oh, this is a 1% click, man. Guys, click the thumbs up button so we can continue this thing right there. It is free, you know, guys. It's just a click. You just have to click, and that's it. Thanks for clicking. I appreciate those who haven't clicked yet. Please click, and of course, let us continue right there. Oh, Julino, Mr. Lix, I sent you something about young upcoming entrepreneur in Dominica. You should really check that person out on your channel. Like, there are so many promising youth ready to make an impact in the world. No, I haven't seen this. Maybe you should send an email or something. My email is BrBpTV@gmail.com. But usually when it comes down to this situation, I advocate that people leave Dominica to do better, because when you're in Dominica, it is, and the thing is, I'm not trying to bring down Dominica in any way, shape, or form. It's just that our leaders are doing that for us. So I'm trying to educate the masses to tell them, hey, you have certain skill sets, try something in Dominica, yes, but look to go overseas to elevate yourself. I have seen so many brothers and sisters. Where is Luan Gabriel right now? She made it all the way to the Olympics, not to the point where she won anything, but she made it there. And you think that, okay, you made it there. Just like Usain Bolt, you know. Usain Bolt was in the Olympics before he became, you know, what he is today. So you think the general practice here and there will help him as a result, or help her as a result, to continue what she was doing, but just fell off the face of the earth. There are other athletes out there. Thank God we have, what's the name? The one from Maryland, who is the triple jumper. She's definitely doing a thing outside of Dominica. She has the resources to help her. And I think there's another guy who's overseas as well, who's doing the 800, I believe. These guys get to at least advance themselves, but what has Dominica done to push the athletes? So I understand that there's young upcoming entrepreneur in Dominica. I would always, and well, guys, I'm telling you the honest truth. I wouldn't lie to you. I would tell any entrepreneur that's coming up in Dominica to leave, to go overseas, to find better markets so they can become the entrepreneur overseas. And if you want to contribute back to Dominica, you send some funds that you've created overseas and you send it back to Dominica. At the end of March, there'll be free movement happening, brothers and sisters. Antigua say they're not in that, so Antigua put themselves outside of that. But Barbados and a number of places will be seeking free movement. And I'm sure they did that so that people can come to Barbados to work, because Barbados is trying to get more population down there as well. So maybe you guys can actually look into that. Anyways, guys, let's continue.
So this is a situation where houses, people are not being housed or getting shelters over their heads for their benefit, but for the political expediency of the government in power. But bear with me, Mr. Greg, as we try to focus and stay on track about this political instability thing, because that's where Dominica is at present. You know?
Yep.
That's where Dominica is at present. And no matter how we want to reform Dominica economically, I'm sure Dr. Thompson will tell you, without political stability, a country does not prosper economically.
Nope.
And all the scholars of political science will tell you, for instance, I know when I was doing my political science and public administration and those things, right? Some of the areas of political instability that have been mentioned is
Now, guys, I want you guys to listen to what he's saying right there, because he's talking about politics. All right. Some people want to say, oh, everybody playing politics. No, brothers and sisters, you are playing partisan politics. There's a huge difference between politics and partisanship. If you support your government, whoever you want to support, that is partisan. That has nothing to do with politics, brothers and sisters. Politics is the policies put in place to help the people. And when the people have policies that are put in place to help them and it's not been done, then the people should say, hey, but wait a while, these policies are there to help us and it's not helping us. It is helping you. Therefore, you should do what? You should go.
Political instability.
Go at your mother home.
That shortens the horizon of the policy making of the government. So in other words, there are some political actions that governments can do which will create its own stability and in turn foster the instability of macroeconomic policies, for instance, and the inability for our government to carry through its plans and programs. And so I remember, and they have highlighted three of those things, right? Frequent switch of policies, creating volatility and thus negatively affecting macroeconomic performance. How many times has this government changed policies by the snap of a finger, by the change of an election, by the turn of a wind, or by the movement of a month?
All the time.
Right now, if you are to ask me, what is the government policy on education? I cannot tell you.
Hey!
What's the government policy on health? I cannot tell you.
Hey! Guys, what is the government policies on education? Can any one of you guys tell me what is the government policy on education? I know Barbados' own. I know Grenada's own. I don't know Dominica's own. I have heard that Dominica is trying to solicit advice from Grenada to help them because Dominica is falling behind when it comes down to modernized times. So can any one of you guys tell me what is the policy of Dominica's education system? We know the policy for healthcare, brothers and sisters. That is the worst policy ever, because apparently the people have to pay more money for less. So what is the policy of education, brothers and sisters? This is why when Dominicans go overseas, they tend to do well. One of the reasons, and there's a motivational factor behind that, because they don't want to come back to Dominica. They want to do their very best. Do their best so that they can wow the businesses and the people that are there, so they don't have to come back. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people, when they leave to go study, they view it as an opportunity for them to escape Dominica, not an opportunity for them to say, hey, oh, I'm going to learn this for me to come back and develop my country. I have never heard any student, I have in all the schools, Monroe, Grambling, MSU, even in Caribbean countries, brothers and sisters, I've never heard any. There's a girl in Barbados right now. None of them are looking to come back to Dominica.
What's the government policy on agriculture? What's the government policy on anything? Because it changes as the world turns, as the wind moves. So if we are to realistically look back on the past 23 years of this government and ask whether they have a continuous, steady policy on anything, they cannot tell you. Not on employment, not in education, not in housing. Another consideration, which is often said as creating a certain level of political instability, has to do with what they call cabinet changes. That the political scientists will tell you constant and regular political changes in cabinet leads to political instability.
Yep.
And so what have we seen? Election after election, candidates are turned around and shuffled on a draft board many times. Just look at the last 5 years.
Reset.
We've had from between 2014, 2019, 2022, there's not one ministry in Dominica that has had a constant minister. Like in the days of H.L. Christian, who could carry a policy through. Or the days of other ministers, or with Dominica, the minister of the only minister in Dominica that has been constant for the past 23 years is the Minister of Finance, who has done a terrible, horrible.
Well, he's not the Minister of Finance anymore, eh? But he was the Minister of Finance for a long time.
Ridiculous job as Minister of Finance. We have never had a steady minister in any ministry of Dominica. And the second person following him would be the Attorney General. No wonder we have such a decrepit and incompetent judicial system today. So can you imagine that? The two people who have been the most steady in office have been the most unsuccessful as far as things are concerned. But nonetheless, political scientists and people in politics and governance will tell you, governmental politics and social policy will tell you, stability is created when you have constant cabinet changes. And thereby, the ministries in which the ministers occupy does not provide that level of stability. So it creates a certain level of instability. So you see, no matter how you look at it, we are running on a level of instability. Bear with me, as I relate that to what you call an anomaly, so to speak, of political instability, but political stability that appears as political instability. I want to refer to Zahid Hussein. He's the lead economist for the World Bank. Dr. Thompson, I don't know if you've ever met him at all. He's one of the leading economists for the World Bank, Zahid Zahid Hussein. And he writes a lot about political instability and governance. And one of the things that he has written recently about, I'm one of his avid followers because he writes a lot of articles in economic publications and political publications, etc. And that's something that's a gentleman I'd like to recommend to anybody in politics or governance to follow very closely. Okay, Zahid Hussein is a lead economist in the World Bank. And I want to allow me to quote something from one of his latest articles that I think I read a few months ago. And this is what he had to say. Economic growth and political stability are deeply interconnected. On the one hand, I'm quoting, the uncertainty associated with an unstable political environment may reduce investment and the pace of economic development. That's a given. And he says, on the other hand, poor economic performance may lead to government collapse and political unrest as a means of political instability. But it's interesting to note, in one of his recent articles, he said, much as we may think that political instability comes from political unrest, he's saying political instability comes from what is perceived as political stability. And this is what he had to say. He says, having political stability can be achieved through oppression, or through having a political party in place that does not have to compete to be re-elected. He further went on to say, in this case, his political stability is a double-edged sword. So while the peaceful environment that political stability may offer is a desideratum, it could easily become a breeding ground for cronyism with impunity. Strong words. And he goes on to say further, such is the dilemma that many countries with a fragile political order have come to face. Allow me to quote from him a little more for the purpose of this discussion tonight. Some see political stability as a condition that not only precludes any form of change, but also demoralizes the public. Try to think about that in the context. I don't think this man has ever been to Dominica.
Of course not.
And he goes on to say, innovation and ingenuity take a backseat.
Brothers and sisters, this is why I like to hear these people speak. You know why? Because when they speak, this is why Professor Lumumba is one of the people that I tend to listen a lot. And when he speaks, he's talking about Africa. But then you can relate what he's saying straight back to Dominica. You can relate everything he's saying, the political struggles in Africa, certain places, when it comes down to Africa as a whole. And you look back to Dominica, you swear that he's speaking about Dominica. There must be some truths to it then.
What we see. That's what we see. Many seek change in all sectors of life, politics, business, culture, in order to have a brighter future through better opportunities. Of course, change is always risky. It is necessary. And he goes on to say political stability can take the form of complacency and stagnation that does not allow competition. Imagine that. And he goes on to say further, just bear with me, the principles of competition do not apply to...
I'll give you a minute longer, Simeon.
Yeah, okay. Just so let me just pull that out. I said political stability in this case refers to the lack of real competition for the governing elite, where they see other political systems, education, business and innovation, and the arts as a competition for themselves. I think that's very remarkable.
Oh, yes.
You know, very, very interesting. Here's what I would say before. I'm going to go back to Dr. Andre for 1 minute, and then we'll take some calls on the console. But here's what I wanted to say, Simeon. First thing, I believe that policies that are driven, that are powered by political expediency, will result in instability. For sure. And that is why when I was president of the DIC, one of the things that we negotiated with Prime Minister Eugenia Charles was that there was to establish a policy review committee. So we met with the cabinet, our executive met with the cabinet from time to time, not to try to formulate policy, but to review some of the policies that the government was putting forward and to ensure that some of the policies they put out were in sync with what we consider to be important, essential, critical for the group, for the engine of growth to be able to work. So that is the policy environment that we wanted to create, which is contrary to what we have now. Because if we look at the policy on housing, for example, just to revisit that briefly, what you found happening in those days is that when a government built houses, it was the government engaging local contractors to build those houses. So local contractors, the Dominicans were working. You found that these local contractors bought building materials, accessories, and so on from the local businesses. So the money stayed in Dominica, right? So you could feel that money in the cash register. Your cash register is clinking all over the place. So in fact, that added value. So anything that is natural resource based, which is going into to boost your economy, is great, because that is the kind of linkage you need. Because when you had all these guys who were doing stonework, and a lot of these houses, they were built with some stone, and you had pavements with flat stones, and so this means you're adding value to the local resources. Money was staying in the country. But Dr. Andre, I wanted to just go with you briefly before I ask Bosso to take some calls, because this business of political expediency, which you see, is the order of the day now. I mean, really and truly, if there had been any real policy about the use of the CBI resources, and let us say, I'm going to assume that at least $15 billion passed through this government's hands from 2000 to 2024. I'm going to assume that is at least 15 billion. Shouldn't we be seeing a little bit more of what was done with that on the ground in Dominica? Shouldn't we be seeing a lot more wealth? You know, when people build those houses or the government build them and they pay for them and they pay their loans and so on, and they add a little extra to the house, a room or two. I mean, people who are doing that in Dominica know it costs money, but the point is you're building equity in those houses. So, you know, a few years later, the houses have more value. If you sell them, you have a little bit more money in your pocket, so you can, or you leave something for your kids.
That's true.
Dr. Andre, let's talk about this a little bit more in the context of this whole question of instability in our economy and in our politics.
Well, first of all, in terms of housing, that is just a tip of the iceberg. Bear in mind, a few years ago, when a bridge was being built, a then member of the United Workers' Party said that rather than $18 million to build that bridge, it really cost on about $11 million. He's now sitting comfortably with his new comrades, and he's turned his back to all that righteous indignation that he voiced so many years ago. But he's just one of many.
Guys, this is why I tell you, when the government then comes and says certain things cost certain amount of monies, it really doesn't... How do I say this? The amount of money that they stated is what is required to build that establishment or this bridge or whatever it is, or the airport, is not exactly that money that is actually needed to build it. This is why a lot of people are thinking that the government is washing money. This is why a lot of people think that the government is washing money by exaggerating prices and then undervaluing that money, undervaluing that project, and then they pocket the rest. This is money laundering, exactly, but they're doing it for business. If you understand the drug cartel, brothers and sisters, now I'm not telling you to go do and do what the drug cartel's doing. But that's what they tend to do. They sell the stuff, then they take the money and they put it into stores and businesses that is owned by different people. That's the mafia mentality, eh? And we're seeing that happening when you ask yourself, who is for that building in Roseau? Oh, go and look to registry, you sit on somebody's. Who is for the yachts outside there that we see you on? Well, go and look to see whose name it's under. That's the same way the mafia used to do their things back in the day. They wash the money into stores. They put different ownerships under different stores, and then they get the monies from that. So when they get the monies from that, it comes in as clean money. That is exactly what seems to be happening in the nature of the Caribbean.
Bear in mind also that you talk about building equity, Mr. G. First of all, the occupants of these homes, they do not own them. They have no certificate of title.
Nope.
And as the people in the Kalinago territory, if you don't have title, then you can't take loans to develop your farms, to develop any industry or small business that you may wish to develop. That's the problem when you do not own where you live. You may feel good that you're not paying rent.
Yep.
But thirdly, we're talking about building equity. What about the standard? What about the quality of these homes?
And brothers and sisters, he's talking about equity, which is interesting. If you understand the insurance companies, especially for when you're utilizing home life insurance, whole life insurance or index life insurance, brothers and sisters, where you're able to pull money from these things. If you have establishments, you have the insurance companies covering the houses, then you pull out the equity and use the equity, and then after you pass, these insurance companies clears these properties and it goes back to the individuals who are under the trust of these establishments. That's how the rich tend to do their thing. By the way, so when you have equity, brothers and sisters, you can use it, covered and insured by insurance. The houses are real estate is covered and insured by insurance. So then insurance comes and clears back these houses, which then is owned by the family again, and it passed to the next generation under the trust. But when they are given apartments and buildings to stay in, which of course you cannot utilize any equity because it's not your own. That's what he's saying there. It's not your own, so you cannot even create generational wealth in the beginning.
The Grand Bay people every day are smelling the sweet smell of hibiscus from these Geneva apartments. Go ask the people in Bellevue, Chopin, the same thing. The quality leaves much to be desired. And not only that, but when you put people in apartments, you are changing their quality and way of life.
Yep.
Whether you like it or not, you're divorcing them from their ancestral homes.
Look at the ghettos in New York. You think this is how people are supposed to live? The ghettos is a survival basis. You think this is how people are supposed to actually live? The same thing is happening in Dominica. A few years from now, look at the different areas. They've mentioned this, I remember in Portsmouth when they were mentioning this, they don't want this to become an untidy place. They want to have it upkept and so forth and so forth. But a few years from now, brothers and sisters, is another ghetto we are creating.
You're affecting that embryonic tie they had to the soil. You are fundamentally changing the pattern of life of Dominicans, particularly in the hinterland, in the countryside. And that is the problem. We cannot boast about these things. Not only that, but who's building the homes? Thompson has already indicated that this is perpetual alienation. This is perpetual ignoring of Dominican workers. What about the public works department? They shut them aside so that they can build in their cronies to do the building which the public works department used to do. So what we have is persistent poverty, or a perpetuation of persistent poverty in Dominica. So obviously that will engender instability.
Of course.
A hungry man is an angry man. Who said that? I can't remember. Or as one of our local Calypsonians said, Mr. G, you can't eat concrete, Gasso. You can't. So we can't talk about, quite frankly, governance, the rule of law, development, if you are starving the vast majority of your local population.
But that's what the people are causing themselves, though. So yes, the government might be the one actually doing the work, but who is causing the government to do these things to them? The people.
And those you are not starving, you are alienating. And not only are you alienating, but you are denying them their dignity. You're telling them you can't buy a tin of paint. And you are boasting about 240 million being exported from Dominica. There's no shame. Compare that to the policies of our predecessors, our leaders, and so on. Edward Oliver LeBlanc telling a Dominican, isn't this your country? How can a foreigner prevent you from going on your own land? People in Bath Estate and all elsewhere getting titles for the properties that they purchased. That is a sense of empowerment, because it improves and enhances your dignity as a human being, as a productive citizen, as someone who has aspirations for his or her children, because you can show them what you've worked. And there's no worse way of depriving a man of his dignity than to chuck him on the unemployment line, to separate him from a land that he can cultivate, to sell some produce, to make him dependent. That is what creates the deep-seated instability, when you remove people's dignity and you render them as as poor people, beggars in their own land.
Can you imagine that you have a wife, you have a husband, and you have children? You have 2 daughters, you have a son. Can you imagine as a man? As a man, you then have to make ministers utilize your wife or your daughters so that you can gain favors to get things. Can you imagine that as a man? Gasa. I do have wife and son and those things there yet, brothers and sisters, but my goodness, I can't see myself saying, boy, I am a man and I have to go and make my wife go and do things for you.
Persons who track, do they still track to the ministry on Wednesdays? I don't know. When you have NEP workers working for a princely sum of $8,000 to $1,000 Eastern Caribbean currency, and to add insult to injury, they have to wait months, but they can't talk loud because they don't want to alienate their gods. So they have to suffer in silence. When you rob people of their dignity, you create an instability in the wounds.
Guys, let me see if I can go forward a little bit.
Poverty.
I say I don't want to pass 2 hours on this thing right there. It's 1:52. Okay.
Numbers. We'll continue discussion. If another call comes in at any time, just raise your hand and make your sign.
We're going to take some calls. Calls are coming in. Just start coming in. Let's take this call. Hello, good evening.
Yes, sir.
So guys, after these calls and stuff, I think I'm going to end it, and then I'll put this link in the description so you guys can check it out. Guys, don't forget to click the thumbs up button. I would appreciate that right there. I didn't expect much people to come in, but because today's Friday, in that regard, a number of persons are out. I myself would have been out, but I appreciate you guys for definitely being a part of this year Reaction Vibrations. It's Friday. Tomorrow, actually, I have to go to a funeral, man. Man, life is something interesting, eh? And that goes to show you that we all have a time frame, brothers and sisters, from 0 to whatever time frame that we have, whether it is 39, whether it is to 50, whether it is to 70, whether it is 128. We have a time frame, brothers and sisters. And within that time frame, when injustices has been happening to the people and a number of persons are staying quiet, that minimum time frame that we have can cause a lifetime of suffering. When we are supposed to be enjoying life for what it truly is, we then have to fight the very people that we consider our own to be against us for the enrichment of themselves or their masters. Because I remember the Prime Minister talking about they are aligned with the world government and what have you. That has nothing to do with the people. The Prime Minister recently signed something that was warned against. Brothers and sisters, you will see what's going to happen in the next 5 and 10 years, you know. Something that we cannot get out of in the next 20 years. Well, Dominica cannot get out of in the next 20 years. He signed it. You don't think that he signed it for him to get some monies or for him to get certain things? It seems like it's just about me, rather than actually looking at what would happen, how it will affect the masses. He says he doesn't think. He doesn't think this would happen. He doesn't think that will happen. Boy, brothers and sisters, Dominica is in trouble for 2024. You think the Rona situation had problems? I hope only have a next card, passport. Well, it's a free movement coming, so at least some people will be saved as a result of this. But some people still will not be able to leave.
I'm going to try to be concise, but I want to reach the people that one of your panel members was talking about. You know, the average Dominican citizen, and I was very impressed with what he was saying. But to keep it concise, there's a cross. You can take a cross section of what's happening in Dominica, and it tells practically the whole story. The tables at our local market, right? The local produce market has everything that local Dominicans want tomatoes, the kokoi, the fig, the yam. It's there. Agriculture is not dead, but it is not in demand.
It's the markets. Agriculture is not dead. If agriculture was dead, St. Vincent would not be elevating. Barbados, Antigua, who else? Bahamas, who else? Guyana is even looking to go into agriculture of sorts, even outside of the gold of the oil mines. Who else? St. Lucia is already doing their thing. Dominica is the only one that doesn't want. Well, Dominica is exporting to certain places like St. Martin, you know. But we are importing way more than we are exporting. So that is not a good thing. It's the markets. So agriculture is not dead. Even though they want to make it seem like if not VAT or if not CBI, what else? Agriculture is not dead. It's just that the Prime Minister does not do his job to actually go and find markets to elevate the people, which means it's intentionally doing this. The government is intentionally doing this to keep the people down.
So right next door to KFC, the lines are always there. This is the cross-section of what is happening in DA. If you take that little cross-section, it tells you what's happening across the country. Suzuki, all of our imports are redefining who we are. Too much.
Yep. Exports should define us.
Insecurity among our youth. It's not a malice, it's an insecurity about what exactly is we're going to stand up for. And we have to re-energize not only the economy, but we have to re-energize the culture of Dominica.
Thank you.
We have to address the fact that our
You have to re-energize the culture, but does the youth even know what Dominica culture is? I mean, sometimes I wonder if the younger persons out there even go to school. Because some of the things that they say and you wonder, but that doesn't make any sense. And they're willing to fight and stand up for what they think is right in their brain without actually any sort of evidence to what they're saying. So sometimes you have to ask yourself a question, brothers and sisters. We always saying the youth is the future. I remember when they used to tell us that. And we saw our youth just vanishing in front of us. A number of my classmates are stuck in a cycle. Some of them are in jail today. Some of them ended up in the drug trade. Some of them are in prison overseas. Some of them are okay. Some of them are working in the bank. Some of them, well, a few of them have left. So many United States doing their thing. Thank God for that. And people like me are online. Thank God for that. But it's just interesting to see the general scope of the people that I went to school with and not doing well. They snubbed the youth. And remember I told you guys when the Kalibishi man was telling Scary that he destroyed his dreams. Yes. The Prime Minister Roosevelt Scary came in with all his youthfulness to try to do things for the youth and completely neglected the youth. To the point where the youth grew up, who are in their 30s, who are in late 20s. Where the youth grew up, brothers and sisters. And looking at their lives today and they wonder what went wrong. I remember sitting down in college with a few of them, man, on the bench, under the umbrella. We were talking about the different things that we're going to be doing, who's going to be a millionaire, who's going to be flying out, all kind of places, man. Guys, I'm going to stop right there because it seems like they're taking calls and all on this. So I'll post this link in the description below so you guys can check it out. But I remember just sitting down with my people, them, girls and boys, even some of the Roseau folks would be around us, and we're talking about things that we want to do. I wanted to be involved in business. You know, I started doing something. I had no idea what I'll be doing. Look, now I'm doing live with you guys. So we are heading in the right direction. But we were speaking about the different things that we wanted to do, man. And the motives and the drives that we had to, you know, even contribute to our economy. All of this is gone today, brothers and sisters. Right now, I'm advocating for people to leave Dominica so they can find betterment. And in turn, finding betterment, they will be able to contribute back to Dominica. Now, there's a difference when I tell people who are overseas, stop contributing to the Labourite family because the Labourite family are the ones putting themselves in that struggle. That's different from individuals going overseas, finding betterment, and then contributing back to their families who are struggling. Whereas being Labourites is a totally different sect right there. because the Liberites are the ones causing Dominica to fail how it is. We look at Skerrit. Yes, Skerrit is the one really, it's kind of like signing a paper, but the implementation of it, the Liberites in Dominica have signed the paper and the government is implementing it right there. Free elections, and as a result of elections, you know, the instability of everything, brothers and sisters. Our healthcare is not the best. It's actually one of the worst, even though we have one of the nicest buildings in the Caribbean. Education, we don't know what on earth is going on. Thank God people get the chance to leave, to go overseas, to really and truly divulge in education and elevate themselves, because they have to cope in an international world and they don't want to come back to Dominica. The construction industry is being handled by who? Foreigners, brothers and sisters. So that means 99% of the money is leaving Dominica. And I say 99% because I remember Kepinski, where two individuals got $30 million US and the other one got about $11 to $14 million. He took these individuals to cut because he wanted the share. So there is that. Agriculture has gone down. I remember looking at the statistics for agriculture. I remember to the point where one of the Liberites met me in church. We come out, you know, brothers and sisters, and we were talking about that after church. And he told me that Dominica has agriculture is about $200 million. I tell him, how on earth could that be possible? Think, sir, think, use your brain. How on earth could that be possible when we just came out from the Rona? How on earth you telling me that last year we had $200 million in agriculture? When generally speaking, when I look at the statistics during United Workers' Party time, it was between $80 to $120 million per year in agriculture. I saw this. So it cannot be better now than it was back then. He believes in himself that is worse. So I went to do the research for myself, brothers and sisters, and I found out that it was only $15 million that was raised in agriculture. Not during the time, you know, brothers and sisters, before the Rona came. $15 million from $80 to $120 million per year. Look at tourism, brothers and sisters. Dominica tourism is one of the worst in the world. Well, I don't know about the world, but in the Caribbean, brothers and sisters, come on. Who are we competing with? We are competing with countries that have far less natural resources than us. Far less abilities to do things. Far less. Antigua promotes its beaches and its resorts. So much to the point where Antigua doesn't want to be a part of the free movement and business. They literally said they don't want to be a part of it. I have the article somewhere there, you know. Let me see if I can find it for you guys, if you think I'm joking. Antigua does not want to be a part of it at all. Well, you think I'm joking. It's not I'm joking. You think I'm joking? All you can read? All you can read now? Okay, I hope all you can read. So tourism is not the best. So what has Dominica elevated on? The only thing Dominica has elevated on, guys, is construction. And majority of the construction industry that can be done by a lot of Dominicans is being handled by overseas individuals. Anyways, guys, I passed the 2-hour mark. So I'm about to end this thing right there. Guys, I would appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up. Teresa Durani said, I really enjoyed this live. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being a part of this, Teresa. I appreciate you. Rasta Aussie, only 9 people didn't click the like. There was about 80 something people there, guys. So, you know, I think some people, you know, kind of left after a while, but that's good. It's well over 2 hours. Some people don't have the retention span to be here for 2 hours. I can go as long as possible, brothers and sisters. I can keep going and going and going, but you know, today is Friday, man. At least we have a little time to go outside and just bask and go on the beach or something, free up yourself, what have you, brothers and sisters. But it's very sad what is taking place in Dominica, and this is why I'm bringing this stuff to you guys as well. Doing the lives don't give me funds, man. Doing the lives don't really give me funds, but I realize that it's a good thing right there. We get to interact and to help out each other in that regard. But it's very sad what has taken place in Dominica. I literally watched Dominica going down the drain. I literally watch it. While I watching it, brothers and sisters, I warning people. Some people listen. Some people listen to me. But it's just unfortunate that, this has happened. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end this right there. For those of you who have not clicked the like button, I would appreciate it if you click the thumbs up button. And of course, if you have not done so, subscribe, brothers and sisters. Subscribe and turn on that post notification so you can get all the videos as they tend to come through right there. It's about Miss Slicks once again, guys. Be real. Be positive.